Greetings. This is another episode of Author Spotlight. I'm book marketing mentor Judy Baker, and today I have the privilege of having Nancy Juetten with me. And Nancy is the Broadcast Your Brilliance entrepreneur. She is so smart. We're going to be talking about how she got into business. We're going to talk about her book and how she brings people to the table and helps them grow their business, all from her wonderful world of expertise. So, Nancy, thank you so much for being with me today.
Thanks, Judy. It's great to be here.
Um, you know, you have an interesting story, and I'd love for you to share how you developed your Bye Bye Boring bio book. How did that come about?
It happened on a dare from a friend in a really dark time. Here was the situation. It was 2008. The Great Recession happened. And at the time, I was running this very successful public relations agency, helping other people look very big and famous in the media. But because of the Great Recession and how dire it was, it seemed that my whole business fell apart in a weekend. My husband and I had just moved from one house to our dream house. The boxes weren't even unpacked. And all of a sudden, my entire client list went to zero. And my greatest fear was that we were going to have to sell the dream house we just bought and suffer the fear of embarrassment of not being able to make it because we reached too high to buy a house at a time which was really not timely. And I was like wringing my hands and crying in my beer and checking into Pity Party Hotel, thinking, what the heck am I going to do? And one of my dear friends said, hold the phone, snap out of it. Nobody writes better bios than you do. You've been writing bios for luminaries and luminaries on the rise for decades. Nobody does it better. I dare you to write a book about it. I dare you. And I said, well, I guess I better do that since I don't have anything better to do. So I put my pen to paper and wrote the first edition of the Bye Bye Boring Bio workbook. I went to the local quick copy place and had them slap a cover on it with a spiral binding. And then I wrote a newsletter and I said, are you struggling to attract clients in this horrible economy? And you need a way to describe who you are and what you do and why it's brilliant so that people will say yes to you. If your answer is yes, click here. I wrote a book about it and I hope you'll buy it. And that was it. And then I said a little prayer and I went and walked the dog. And then a couple hours later, when I came back, I was looking at my computer screen. I couldn't believe my eyes. You have an order. 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 It was like looking at a slot machine at Las Vegas. I felt breathless. I went across the hall to say to my husband, you've got to see this. And he says, what is it? And he was looking at the same thing I was looking at. And he had his like ridiculous look on his face, like he didn't really get it. He says, what does that mean? And I said, it means money in the shopping cart, enough to pay the mortgage.
Oh my God, that is crazy.
It was crazy. And we were like doing a little happy dance. And then he says to me, well, I don't know how you pulled that off, but can you do it again?
That is too funny. That is too funny. Now, it's gone through some different iterations since then. So, what have you done since you started, and how has it changed?
Well, the first one was a 3-week imperfect action done is better than perfect effort that I sold for a very low price and was handsomely rewarded. A year later, I said to myself, I could do so much better. Why don't I put in some examples and some templates and some useful resources that would make this an even more valuable resource? And the second edition was even more valuable than the first. And then I rode that train for a good long time.
Yeah.
And then the pandemic hit in 2020. And I thought to myself, here again, the world kind of stopped. And if you were a speaker, expert, and author who was counting on being on stages, live or virtual, to speak your truth and make your difference, it was like an Etch-a-Sketch got shaken. And everybody's calendar went blank, and I was right there with them. And I thought, shoot, what am I going to do to make rain during this dramatic, dire time?
Mm-hmm.
So I revisited the second edition of Bye Bye Boring Bio like it was for the very first time. And I asked myself, is this the best I can do right now? Or should I take the opportunity to completely upgrade it to be relevant and of service to what speakers and experts are dealing with right now? And I dared myself, make
Mm-hmm.
this the very best version of this effort that you've ever done since you started. And so that became Bye Bye Boring Bio 2020. And it's targeted to speakers, experts, thought leaders, and those who need to speak up virtually on podcasts and virtual stages so that they can make their impact without leaving their house. And so this one is different because it focuses more on ninja strategies for podcast guesting success, how to make a pitch that a host can't resist. It gives you examples of media one sheets that you can model and emulate so that you can create something that can actually open a door and offer you an opportunity. And so when this came out, it was an Amazon bestseller as a preview, and it's just gone on to continue to serve and support people during a time when there's never been more urgency to speak up virtually on podcasts, broadcasts, and other virtual stages.
Well, I know because I've been working with you. I know something else that you did. About how many appearances have you made on podcasts in the last 2 years?
Well over 100. Well over 100. And here again, if you're used to speaking and training, if you like to speak more than you like to type, if a juicy conversation is your next best favorite thing to do, podcast guesting is a strategy that's made for you. And so while I could have been wringing my hands and checking into Pity Party Hotel and crying in my beer about all the opportunities that I could have lost, instead, I rolled up my sleeves and said, I could be a guest on podcasts and I can teach people how they can book themselves on the right shows without hiring an expensive booking agency. So they're never hungry for an audience ever again. And I have since gone on to train thousands of people to do exactly that. So it's not just my 100 or more episodes, but how many of my clients have booked themselves on 4 to 12 to 20 podcasts who have found themselves known for what they do and now lassoing those listeners into their ecosystem so that they can get paid well for what they do. So I feel that I've done a really powerful service to messengers everywhere, having first decided to dare myself to redo this book so it would be relevant and congruent and of service to people now more than ever, and to have a ability to empower others to have that also.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like a really powerful solid to do for messengers who need to be empowered in this way.
When I think of all of the, thought leaders who are out there and the style of their coaching, mentoring, even, just them showing up, what strikes me about you is your warm heart, and you're generous, and you don't worry about being quote unquote perfect. You're more engaged with how do I help you? How can I help you do better, rather than telling people to blast off and not be themselves. And I just think that has made such a huge difference.
Well, thank you. You know, I've been giving a lot of thought to values that we bring to our business lately. And if you made a long list of all the values that are important to you, integrity, doing the right thing, telling the truth, maybe these are things you would speak to your children or your nieces or your nephews. But when you're running a business and you have a long list of things that you care about, if you had to narrow it down to 3, could you do it? And just this last week, in fact, I tried to do that. And I came up with generosity, extreme value, and commitment to mastery. These are the 3 values upon which my whole business is built.
Mm-hmm.
And they inform how I show up in service to everyone that I get to work with. And so when people say she's so generous, she goes the extra mile, I get extreme value, whether I'm listening to a YouTube video, a podcast interview, or I'm lucky enough to be behind the velvet rope in one of her tuition-based programs. And they also say that, so it's generosity, value, and mastery, because anything that we're doing, we suck at in the beginning. I mean,
Darn right.
it's like anything we're doing, we suck at the beginning. And so when I think back to my very first podcast guest spot, maybe it wasn't so great. Maybe I might have been a little nervous. Maybe I might not have used vocal variety. Maybe I didn't insert the proper pauses. Maybe I duffed my call to action. Maybe I did, who knows what other mistakes I made. But because I'm committed to this path to mastery, I know that the podcast episode I do tomorrow is going to be far better than the one I did way back when. And I think that that's true for all of us. And so when we do podcast guest audits, I'll listen for, was the call to action clear and memorable and easy to spell and say? Were there proper pauses inserted? Did the guest begin with the end in mind? Did the guest bend and sway when asked a question he or she wasn't expecting? Did the rapport feel genuine, or did it feel like ping pong? There's so many things we can listen for to know whether or not that exchange was going to land for us to the point that we would actually want to take that next step. But I think the more human we are when we're engaging with a host, the more that vibration translates to everybody who gets to listen. And if you are the solution provider to that problem that that listener is struggling with, they just had a 20-minute interaction with you where they know for sure that you're their person or not. And if you are their person, who are they going to call? They're calling you.
And you're bringing up a really good point. The leaving the space for people to digest what you just said. That pause. We don't have to fill up every single second with noise, words, or anything else. If you've said something dramatic, impactful, let people sit with it for a minute.
Amen. I'm also reminded of Mozart and his key competitor, whose name is escaping me for the moment. But they were talking amongst themselves about their respective symphonies. And the one guy says, "What do you think about my symphony?" And the guy says, "Too many notes."
Oh, gosh.
Less is often more. Less is often more. But yeah. I'm very glad that I wrote the book. And one of the things that I want to say, because I know a lot of your listeners are authors who have books that they've written, but maybe they haven't given their book the runway to succeed to the degree that it can. Mm-hmm. Build an audience for your book even before your book is in your hand. If you've created a first edition and you've launched it and you've had a lackluster result, source the courage to launch it again and give it a fresh perspective and something relevant to land on so that it can serve at the highest level. And any book is like raising a child. If you bring a child or a puppy or any living thing home for the first time, it's like this young living thing. Well, you've got to nurture that thing for the next 2 years and talk about it everywhere you go and take it wherever you're going and have your trunk of your car full of books that you can drop off and share with people wherever you go. You got to be ready for these kinds of opportunities. You got to love your book enough to give it a life that will exceed your expectations, because if you're waiting for someone else to do it, you're probably going to be sorely disappointed.
Well, and you took your book and created this masterful course, which keeps getting better and better. you want to talk about that a little bit because that's really one of the directions I encourage authors to explore. If you've got expertise and you put it into a book, is it a course?
Well, begin with the end in mind when you're writing that book, because I began the third edition with that end in mind, that I was going to create an amazing active live course where people could interact with me and get the messaging magic and the finesse and the ninja strategies so that they can go out and book themselves on great shows. So I lead a program called the Broadcast Your Brilliance Bootcamp. And in 12 weeks, the promise is that you will book yourself on 4 to 12 of the right shows under your own power without hiring an expensive booking agency or letting tech or overwhelm take you out.
Yeah.
And the course is delivered live with hot seats and interaction so people can practice their pitches, practice their messaging, practice everything that they need to know in order to feel masterful.
Mm-hmm.
And clients love it so much that they get the results that they came for, end up doing business among and between each other. And they love it so much that during this most recent session, 71% of those who enrolled in the first 12-week session decided to renew because they love the content, but they want to stay for the community and the mastery. So I am incredibly proud of that. And the big lesson that I would share is, so many people want to create a course and they're recording modules in a vacuum that they think somebody's going to want to watch or listen to.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that you must validate before you automate. And that is why I teach my course live. And I teach people how to prepare their mindset, their message, and their unique ability. Prepare, position yourself, prioritize the best shows that would be right for your message, pitch like it counts because it does, ping pong people into your world with an irresistible call to action. And why does that matter? So you can profit. So I will guide you through these 6 P's, and I will implore you to practice regularly. And the more you practice, the more masterful you get. And the more other hosts will hear you and invite you to be a guest on their show. And one thing leads to another, and that's how momentum builds. So it's my favorite way to serve the clients that come under the velvet rope, get the value and my velvet boot of accountability to make sure that they kick their BUTSs to some other curb. Because I don't want you in here if you're not going to do the work, because the success trajectory we're on is very, very solid. And I want everybody to be a winner. And so I did create a course. And I guess the question is, everybody's so attached to their book. Listen, I've written a bunch of books. Here's 2 books, other books I've written. This one sells for $17.95.
Yeah.
This one sells for $19.95.
Mm-hmm.
How many people can support their family selling books at $19.95 at a time? It's so much more important to have a bigger, juicier, more interactive way to support and serve people at the highest level. Mm-hmm. And then include your book as part of the experience. And so for me, as soon as someone signs up for the Broadcast Your Brilliance Bootcamp, my system triggers the shipping of byebye boring bio to their doorstep with a happy note to welcome them. It's part of my onboarding process, but I'm not going to accomplish my paved path to riches selling a $19 book. And my guess is you're not either. Think bigger right out of the gate. That's my advice.
And receiving those books in the package after I joined your group, I went, wow, I just got another gift. I mean, I already have the gift of being with you, but now I have another gift. And it's that whole shift about here's my content, but what am I doing with it? And you've built your business, you shifted your business, you are expanding your business, and it all came out of that dare to write the book. But then you are smart enough to know, well, here's how else I can be working with this, and let me see how I can have a bigger impact in the world. One of the things you said about, your renewal rate, it is that community. And I truthfully believe all of us who have clients, we've got a community now, but what if we could expand that community? And you've done it brilliantly. And just as we were talking, before we started recording today, you don't have to start with a gajillion people in your community. Start with the few people who are, good fit for you, and serve the heck out of what you're delivering to them. And then they will share, and those people will share, and those people will share with more people.
I think that wowing your clients, that's my number one thing I think about when I take myself out of bed and put my feet on the floor. How can I wow my clients today? How can I go the extra mile for my clients today to ensure that they get more than the value they put forth, and that their expectations are exceeded? Sometimes we overcomplicate what we do. And sometimes there are people who hold back on their generosity because they say, well, I'm not going to tell you that because that's only for people who ascend to the next level program and want you to pay another ridiculous amount of money to be part of it. No, if you're in there and I can help you out and I've got the answer, I'm not going to hold back, because when you succeed, I will succeed. The rising tide lifts all the boats. So the generosity, the value, and the mastery are woven into everything I do. But it all starts with, did I wow the client today? Did I go the extra mile? I heard someone just recently, Megan Huber, say that it costs 7 times as much to attract a new client to a program as it does to keep the clients you have, so they will stay with you and grow with you. And that's the kind of math I can understand. Come under the tent, get an amazing experience, have an extraordinary result, know that you are seen, heard, celebrated, ultimately compensated in the ways that you wanted to, and also in unexpected ways. Because one of our fellow members has got a book launch coming up this week. And are we championing this book? All of us are coming forth to support this person who's written a new book. And I have every belief that she will be an Amazon bestseller, because we're building that kind of community. None of us succeeds alone. None of us. So be choosy about where you show up so you can be part of something that's bigger than you are, but the people who are on the bus are the people you want to be traveling with.
You have just dropped all of these golden nuggets all throughout our conversation and since I met you. Even before I joined the program, you were so generous. Now, I want you to share what's coming up for you and how people could get some more goodies and knowledge from you.
Well, I'm honored to share. If you would like to get your virtual hands on your own copy of byebye Boring Bio workbook, perfect for authors, experts, and speakers who want to raise their voice virtually, between now and May 30th, 2022, you can get it for free. It's a $97 value, priceless when applied, but you will get it for free when you go to getknowngetpaid.com/BBBW Judy to get it. That stands for byebye Boring Bio Workbook Judy, because Judy is the reason that we are here. And once you download that, you're going to be gobsmacked by all the examples, the templates, the videos, the audios, the bonus workbook to help you get known and get paid. There's so much value here. You're going to be astounded. But you will also get invited to participate in the Podcast Visibility Live Lab, which is my signature free and fabulous event through which I will teach you the 6 Ps. I will give you homework assignments every night so you can get some learning in your bones and in your being. And my guess is that you're going to be booking yourselves on shows before the event is complete. And the link to that is getknowngetpaid.com/PVLL Judy. which stands for Podcast Visibility Live Lab Judy. And I'm pretty sure that Judy's going to put these links in the show notes. So if you didn't remember them, you'll be able to find them. But I want you to run and not walk. I dare you, in fact, to go get these goodies, because the value, the generosity, and the mastery that you can gain in a few short days, me pouring into you, it's going to empower you to be seen, heard, celebrated, and compensated as a podcast guest for the lifetime of your successful business. And if you want that velvet boot of accountability to kick you into a whole new gear, you'll know that the Your Brilliance Bootcamp is for you, and you'll have a call to action to consider when the time is right for that.
And if you're listening or watching, I want you to take advantage of this incredible opportunity. I will say working with Nancy has done more for me than any of the other programs I've been in, any of the other mentoring groups. The community is fabulous. The information is great. And Nancy is there to guide you every step of the way. And yeah, we're all babies when we start, and we're going to stumble and we're going to do stuff. And it's like, oh, you stood up and then you fell down, and then you stood up again and you took 2 steps and then you fell down. That's how you get to be able to walk.
Well, and here's the thing. Thank you so much for that. I grew up as a TV kid. I watched a lot of advertising. My dad was an actor in Hollywood, so I've seen more television commercials than I really want to count. But there's this one about the almond growers. They got these 2 guys that are almond growers, and they're standing in the almond growing fields, and they're saying to their fellow consumers out there, just 2 cans a week. That's all we ask. And if everybody in the world bought 2 cans of almonds every week, they'd be making a great contribution to the almond loving public. They'd make a good living, and the world would be healthy and happy eating lots of almonds. So with that as sort of a fun way to frame it, I would love to be able to teach you how to book yourself on 2 of the right podcasts every week for the rest of your life, so you're never hungry for an audience ever again. Once you start doing this, your confidence is going to grow. You are going to be so intoxicated by how much fun it is. And when you get masterful at ping-ponging people back into your ecosystem with your unique and compelling call to action, you'll have more of the right people seeking you out, knowing that you are the teacher that solves the problem that they've been suffering from, and they're ready to say yes to you right now. That is the beauty of podcast guesting for good and profit. And if that's exciting to you, you've just met someone who likes nothing better than to teach people how to do this, so that you're never hungry for almonds or an audience ever again.
Oh my goodness. Nancy, you are the best. And this is one pillar of helping people find your book and your business. And for you to be a happier business owner, I am so fortunate to be involved with this great community. I've been meeting wonderful people who I can collaborate with, who want to collaborate with me, and learning how to show up more powerfully than I ever did before. And I hope you've noticed, neither Nancy or I are screaming at you. We're not trying to hype you into anything. We're telling you our experience from the heart. And that's really what's of a value to me and to Nancy. We are clear communicators, and we want to share what we know with you. So I will definitely be putting those links in the show notes. And Author Spotlight is here for those of you who've written a nonfiction business book. I want to show you how you can turn that content into cash. And I am so grateful that I could have my fabulous friend and teacher with me today. So with that, we're going to end our episode of Author Spotlight. Is there anything I missed, Nancy, that you want to say before we end?
Well, I would say that if you could prepare your mindset in this way, believe and behave as if the most important influencer or podcast host was calling you tomorrow, and believe that your business is worthy of sales beyond expectations, and that your message is worthy of a much wider audience. If you will repeat these things to yourself every day before you get up in the morning and every night before you go to sleep, you will rise up to be that person. You will be media ready. You will be media savvy. You will be on message, and you will be ready to rock. And I can't wait to hear about your success. My name's Nancy Juetten. It's really been a pleasure being here with you today.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. And thank all of you for joining us today. With that, Judy Baker, Book Marketing Mentor, and I will see you next time in the Author Spotlight.